Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's CC-Webinar.Live keynote and panel discussion session, and thank you for joining. We would also like to thank Lang Telecom for sponsoring today's session. Now, I would like to pass on the microphone to Eric to introduce the keynote speaker and later on to moderate the session. For audience, if you have any questions, please do use the chat box option throughout the session. That's all from my side. Eric, over to you.
Thank you, Laura, and welcome everybody. I'm delighted on behalf of the Carry community to have keynote speaker Igor Skutsenya with us, and the panelists Anurag, Mike, and Sidra, hopefully. So today we're going to discuss how do operators face the increasing threat of fraud in the wholesale business. So a lot to talk about. So we will start the session with the keynote presentation from Igor from Lang Telecom, and afterwards we'll bridge this into an interactive panel session. So again, welcome everybody. Welcome Igor and panelists. Igor, the floor is yours. So take it away, please.
Thank you very much, Eric. I'm delighted to do this presentation today for all of you guys, for panelists, and most of all for attendees. We will be covering the journey that we took in developing our own in-house fraud management system. What are the main benefits behind it? How do we make it better every day? What do we see in the future, and how we work with partners to make sure that our system reflects the highest standards and requirements of our partners and ourselves, obviously. Let me start by sharing my screen, and I hope you can see the presentation now, correct? Okay. So my name is Igor Skutsenya. I'm a business development manager for Lang Telecom. We are a major transit carrier of voice and SMS. We would like to take you to the world of our added value products, our software products. It's kind of public knowledge that, you know, to stay relevant, each professional in each field should learn a new skill or gain new knowledge every year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, just to stay ahead and to stay relevant. And we brought that concept and that same approach to our organization. We're constantly developing our products, and we're making them better, and we make sure that we bring more and more and more to the market and to our partners. So we would be just kind of a glimpse of what's going to happen. We will be kind of giving the insight on how did we develop it, how do we came to the decision to share it with industry, how do we work with expectations and introducing them into the system, how do we make the expectations into features. We will be talking about what exactly our partners expect from us, what kind of technology is inside of our fraud management system, what challenges do we face and we address, how do we, what kind of value do we bring to our partners and to the partners that are using our system. And obviously we would have kind of an insight into the future. How do we see the progress, not only of this product, but maybe the industry, or maybe the growing demand for software products in telecom market. So just to an initial start was around 9 years ago. We were and are a major international voice carrier. And obviously, when you open up new partnerships, when you open up new destinations and you increase your volumes, you encounter the growing danger of fraud. And we understood that it's there. And it's kind of the thing that is not only affecting us on an organizational level, like we have to make internal changes and all that, it also would affect our relations with client and with the whole market. This is something that we had to have. This is something that we should have the best one out there just to maintain the reputation of a reliable partner. So we started off with developing just the basic functionality. And then with time flowing, we added more and more technology into that. We introduced machine learning with the neural network. We introduced new features of voice warning systems. So our initial expectations were basically just to dip our toes into the developing our own in-house fraud management system. using our own expectations, using our own insight and our own needs. And the advantages for developing in-house fraud management system were obviously that we could reflect our hands-on knowledge of our own traffic. We knew what kind of trends are in there. We knew the dangers that are lying there. And we could tailor it the way it would serve us the most purpose. We also could define clear objectives, you know, how you would always have some kind of back and forth talk with any vendor that is out there, even the most knowledgeable, even the most advanced. You would still have to communicate and to deliver your own needs so that they would have some time shaping it into the product and so on. We didn't have that gap. We had clear objectives. So our contact within organization was very direct and is very direct. And the third thing would be the agility with changes. I mean, obviously, it's way easier to introduce changes as we go. It's way easier to communicate what exactly do you want and what kind of result do you expect. So you can introduce into the system that is kind of done by the market player, your changes would be super relevant. You know that this is something that not only you as but also the industry demands, because you're a part of it. And then maybe 2 or 3 years ago, we just understood that we have a technology that we could share. We have developed a web interface that we provide to our partners, where they could change their vision of high usage, where they would change the reactions of the system, whether they would like to block something or let something flow. Do they want to reject calls in certain scenarios? Maybe they would like to introduce some threshold-based rules where they would reflect the amount of simultaneous calls or the levels of ACD and ASR that they would expect on certain destinations with certain partners. So we developed kind of a tool that allows our partners to reflect their vision in the most precise way and to have the system looking out for that and making sure that the vision is implemented. So right now we share that with more than 70 partners. I believe it just grew last week. Perhaps we're closing to 80 partners. Those are operators, international carriers, PBX service providers around the world. Among those almost 80, there are more than, I guess, 12 tier 1 operators that are like out there that are using our system to aid them in their business. And we are very, very delighted to have them on board. We estimate the savings from usage of our system at around $5 million every month, because our system is working in real time and it's automatic. So it saves a lot of time, a lot of human resources, and most of all, it reacts a lot faster than the system that don't use real time and don't use neural networks. So there's a lot of potential, and there's obviously a lot of value already being delivered to our partners and to us. Regarding past, current, and future expectations that are being built in SMS, as I've kind of introduced before, we are a market player. So we understand the needs of our partners the way nobody else would, because we are in the same team, we're on the same kind of like ocean of opportunities, we're in the same industry, and we can understand their needs like nobody else. And obviously, since we own the system, we can introduce the changes, we can introduce their expectations a lot faster and a lot more precise, just according to their exact requirements. We are out there just changing our system as we speak, and we will talk more about the features that will be introduced a little later on. Regarding the particular example with challenges and create new features based on meeting those challenges, the perfect example would be OneGeary 2.0. This is a scenario that we discovered 2 years ago and introduced to GSMA, to FASG, to CFCA, ATRI Forum, all those anti-fraud communities. We have discovered a new scenario that fraudsters use to prey on unsuspecting enterprises. They would be generating the inquiries to call back or to deliver one-time passwords by voice messages from enterprises. And the businesses won't know that it leads nowhere. They wouldn't know that these calls would lead them either to hijacked international routes or to premium rate service numbers. And they would basically be doing their best in selling their product to help their potential customers and would like to make the best impression and perhaps make a sale. But what would happen is that they would fall victim to that thing where the schemers would just do their best to have them on the call for as long as possible, and just to sever those like premium rates, premium cost for no apparent value whatsoever. And when we talked to operators, we understood, like they understood the whole concept, but I mean, their concern was genuine that the enterprises that don't know about the whole situation would like to do their best in selling them and selling their services. They wouldn't like it. They would like to explore every opportunity to present their goods and products. They would like to do their best. And they wouldn't be too keen on just rejecting those calls. So we developed a feature of voice warning, where a voice would warn enterprise customers that they're calling a risky number, a fraudulent number, and if they would like to proceed, they must press the button. So we're not denying them service. We're not only educating them, we're making sure that we're showing that we care. We're educating them about the cases that are out there, and we make sure that there's a lot less damage done by those things. Regarding industry feedback, it's overwhelmingly positive. I mean, if our clients would like, I mean, even something that might be interpreted as a complaint, we could always make it into the feature. So there's some clients ask us to like increase the number of reports or to kind of shape them, to introduce new data into those reports that they would receive. We can do it. Obviously, we did a voice feature for WonGeary 2.0, which it's also was the need for many operators that we work with, because and the cases we're especially proud of would be like the WonGeary 2.0, and also, well, I mean, I'm not in a position to disclose any details, but the amount of calls that are being blocked by our system is like, it's in some days it's millions of blocked spam calls, robocalls. We're processing a lot of traffic, and we think that this is one of the key achievings of fraud management system, because we're showing the partners the value, and they're willing to put the destinations that are risky and to have the defenses of FMS ready. So we're very, very proud of it. The characteristics of FMS and why partners choose it would be, first of all, machine learning. To automatize the whole process of fraud management, to make sure that the machine is there to look for you, to do your job, is basically astonishing. We highly recommend using the systems that are using machine learning. I know there's not too many of them right now on the market. Like the majority still is using the CDR analysis, and there's nothing against that, but it's better to aid it with machine learning tools. The real-time protection. We know that the longer fraudulent calls go, the more damage would be sustained. So we highly advise to choose the system with real-time protection like ours, because it would make sure that you sustain minimum damage, and your personnel and perhaps your enterprise partners that are warned as early as possible, and they know better what's going on. And voice warning instead of denying service is one of the things that we introduced. I think it was a year ago, or maybe slightly more, and we're thinking that a lot of partners would like to have calls rejected and blocked, and that would be very, very efficient. But still, if you could introduce the education tool, the kind of like advertising tool that would show enterprise clients and the ending users that, hey, we care, here's what we're looking out for you, and here's what you should look out for, and maybe you shouldn't make those calls, but at least you could know. We think that this is again a characteristic that should be in the modern fraud management system. Regarding making business better and more fraud resistant, obviously everyone's kind of hesitant, especially in these uncertain times, to expand their business, to introduce like new markets. because the situation is changing daily and changing rapidly. So an additional assurance in at least voice services and the ability to reach out some clients and potential leads that are out there is bringing a lot of assurance to businesses, both telecom and enterprises. And understanding partners' needs and adapting system to fit is also something that we highly value in our system. And we are introducing changes as we speak, and we would be introducing new changes in future as well. Here's kind of like a glimpse inside of our dashboard, which is basically what you would see. There's as you can see, it's very simple. It's not destined to be used just by industry pros. It's very simplistic. It's something that you would that anybody with just a couple of hours, 3 hours of training could use. We have the active blockages, last events, top destinations for fraudulent calls and rejected calls with maybe alerts, blockages. You have the monthly statistics over here in terms of graph. It's a very like managerial view. It's kind of the thing that you could be making decisions on. And we're very, very proud not to make it too technical, but to make it relevant to each and every level of employee, be it operational level, mid-level management, or top managers. Because we have CXO that are kind of have that CXOs of our partners that are using our system almost daily. Regarding planned features to be added, obviously we would like to have to allow our clients to use our systems even more, to a larger extent, to have more tools at their disposal inside of their web interface. It's kind of it has two meanings. Like the first one, the clients would sometimes just rely on the automatic things and not to spend much time and much effort to use that system. And this is one of the good things about it, because we could be they could rely on our tool that it works and don't think twice about it. It's just it just would bring them value without bringing a lot of resources to maintain or just to know more about it. On the other hand, a lot of clients, they ask us to introduce new features, and we're obviously looking for the way to introduce those features so that they could get even more value from that. We could be having more options of blockage terms. I mean, we're constantly being asked to have like the indefinite blockage, like, can you block this number forever and ever? And this is one of the things that our client are asking us. Now, we will be introducing that feature, obviously, and reporting options, including value calculation. This is something that we would be introducing later on this year, probably. We understand that, introducing why you use some tool and perhaps why you should use it to a larger extent would require some numbers behind it. We understand that you can't just be vague about it and just say, like, it's a good system, I like using it, and we should continue to do it. So we would introduce the value calculator later on this year, which would show our partners exactly how much they're saving with blocked calls, with rejected calls, and all that. And this is something that we would be introducing. It would make a lot of sense, and the clients wouldn't have to ask many questions to realize the value, because it would be in front of them. And the second thing would be our system that is being developed inside Lang Telecom, but became a spin-off company with a separate strategy, with a separate management and a separate set of values, would be AB Handshake. This is a tool that would aid fraud management system. It's a validation tool that validates calls before or during their connection. It compares call details between the originating operator and terminating operator. And it's a perfect way to battle robocalls, especially with CLI spoofing, interconnect bypass, call stretching, any scenario that would require changing A or B numbers, or the moments of start or finishing the call, like full sensor supervision, for example. It's a very effective, very simple tool. It's the system that we already are enrolling and having several integrations, and we have a very, very bright future for it and for kind of our dynamic duo of fraud management tools. One of them would be fraud management system, and the second one would be AB Handshake. So the future looks very bright. If you would like to know more about fraud management system, about the products that we have, about AB Handshake, reach out to me, Igor Skutsenya, at i.skutsenya@langtelecom.com. You can see it in front of you. And I would be glad to talk more and provide a lot more insight to all people that are interested. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So thank you, Igor. Well, that's an impressive presentation you just you shared with us. So thank you very much for that. Let's just see if we have some questions. I mean, and you know, everybody out there, you can and I would like to encourage you to give us some questions, and the panelists some questions. You can use the chat box for it, so please do. I don't see any questions right away, but I do have one because especially on, let's say, the future features you would like to build in, Igor, and especially on the more reporting options. So including the value calculation, I really understand that that's also bringing some really value add to your partners and to your future partners who decide to go and to indulge actually the FMS from you guys. So when is that expected? Is there anything you can say and tell us a bit more about? Because again, I can understand that it is right in your face, and that speaks more than words, right?
Yeah, sure. We could expect these features in 2021. I mean, I wish I could provide like the exact date or at least a month, but with the volumes that we face, I mean, we've out of like almost 80 operators that we introduced into our system, we added more than 25 in this year alone. So we have an overwhelming interest in the system. We have a lot of questions, a lot of like we introduce new users and new companies into using fraud management system. So there's a lot of work. I mean, we're not stopping it, but we need to not only to make sure that we're being super active and super efficient with the clients that we have, but we should also integrate it so that it would be flawless for the current and future clients of ours. So it takes a lot of work.
Okay, cool. That sounds really good. So 2021, you mentioned, right?
We very much hope so. Very much. And
okay.
there would be announcement.
Okay, we'll keep track on this. Now, quick question for you, Igor, coming in over the chat box from Amina. And Amina, thank you very much for that question. She's thanking you for the presentation. She found it very interesting, and she's a beginner in fraud management systems, so in FMS. So, Igor, could you please go in details a little bit about AB Handshake?
Yeah.
Elaborate a little bit more, because it's a spin-off. Is it? Maybe you can quickly tell us a bit about it. Thank you.
So the main, thank you. Thank you for asking, Amina. It's a great question. And the thing is that fraud management system is a piece of software that is, in essence, it's an analytical platform. So you have an analytical platform that compares call details to incoming call details with the database of fraudulent numbers, or to patterns of fraudulent calls and scenarios that usually follow. It's an internal analytical tool, and with a lot of features. It's kind of reactive. It acts after the call is being delivered, while the AB Handshake is very different in principle. And this is why it brings most value to fraud management system users too, because it has a different angle and it covers the scenarios that are not covered by FMS. It's extremely hard to cover interconnect bypass or robocalls that are generated elsewhere. Robocalls with CLI spoofing especially. The analytical tools can discover them, but still, you would like to have a little more insurance in that. So AB Handshake is very different. It's a piece of software that receives, communicates with switching equipment on the operator, and it compares the call details between two operators originating and terminating in real time. So the call is usually going through a cloud of a lot of transit operators and a lot of partners. And sometimes, sadly, somewhere along the way, there could be call hijacking. There could be interconnect bypass, which is trying to pose as a local call in terms of international. You could have a campaign of one GUI being generated elsewhere. But when you have AB handshake and have direct connection between the originating operator and terminating operator, there's no way anything that is originated elsewhere could get through, because like both operators, originating and terminating, upon receiving the call or originating the call, they would contact each other and they would compare those details. If there's any chance, the system is alerted and perhaps the call is rejected and the numbers are blocked. The very little, the very minimum is that the source would be pinpoint for most of fraudulent cases. So it's a very different angle, and it brings a lot of value to a already valuable tool. One of the key features though is that you must have that installed on the originating operator. You must have that piece of software, AB handshake, being installed. But what makes this is exactly what makes it even stronger, because you have the assurance that calls originated by the operators that are using AB handshake are clean, and you are basically in a fraud-free environment. So this is it's a tool that adds a lot of value to those operators that are already on board with FMS and those are without.
Okay, cool. Just to be on the safe side, what you just mentioned. So, and that's actually a question from David, and thank you for that question. And let those questions keep on coming in, guys, out there. So David was asking, do we need to route the relevant traffic to Lang Telecom in order to use the FMS, or can we buy the software, lease the software, whatever, and as a separate product without any traffic commitments, or how does it work actually?
Yes, well, we have the best answer on that. You could do both. Like if you would like, and it would be relevant to your needs to route traffic to Lang in order to use the FMS, you can do it. Have as much business as you
Please do.
would like to have. Yeah, welcome, bring it. Or if you would like to kind of do your own way and choose your partners not based on the fraud management systems that they use, we could be installing the FMS either on your cloud of your company or on the server within the security perimeter, and have all the traffic being checked by FMS, incoming and outgoing. You can do both. So either way, we would be glad to help you out.
Okay, cool. Sounds perfect. So, okay, so thank you very much, Igor, for your presentation, again sharing the knowledge on the FMS. I think that it's quite clear for everybody. I don't see any other questions coming, so I would like to kick off actually the panel discussion, and let's start with the introduction of the panelists we have here today. Anurag, if I may give you the floor to kick off, tell something about yourself and about your company, and then we'll move over to Mike. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Anurag Agarwal. I am part of Tata Communications based out of New Delhi, India. I head the commercial arm of our A2P messaging business, wherein I interact very closely with all our partners, whether they're customers, suppliers, operators, aggregators. For example, we are very happy to work closely with Lang and Vodafone also in our day-to-day business operations. And I think fraud is an area which is very close to my heart because since I'm responsible for the P&L management of our messaging business, and we see a lot of different types of traffic streams coming into our system every day. And we've got our hands burnt in the past with a couple of cases of fraud, which were slightly new to us. And we are starting to see that the world of fraud is far bigger than what we can even imagine. So here we are today to discuss this further, and I look forward to a good discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anurag. Yes, whatever is out there with bad intentions, they're more than we think, and they're faster in their time to market than we are actually. So we need to fight them, and we will. And Lang is going to help us with it. We just heard it. So over to you, Mike. Welcome, Mike, and please introduce yourself. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Eric. So I'm Mike Chalmers-Hunt. I head up the commercial risk and fraud management for Vodafone Carrier Services. I'm based here in the UK, but cover our entire platform. We have our own FMS as well, built on our platform, which manages a number of features. Very much the same as Anurag, fraud is at the very heart of what we do. It is very important to Vodafone Carrier Services. Is a key part of what we do. It's a real focus for all of our customers, whether that's one of our own opcos that's connected to our platform or it is one of our carrier partners. Fraud is very high on their agenda. And we are keen to work with a number of people in order to have an effective fraud management system.
Thank you, Mike. And yes, absolutely. I think it's a joint effort for everybody and then all of us out there to make sure we fight it, and we hopefully one day we can win it. So, Mike, staying with you, just go back to the start. Which fraud scenarios are becoming very popular from your point of view? What do you see?
So if I look at it from the voice environment, it is very much Wangiri and international revenue share. They are by far the two prevalent frauds that we see. You have the Wangiri, which has been described by Igor earlier. It's very customer impacting, whilst it may not be the most sort of financial impacting fraud for many people. It is, as I say, from a customer point of view, very impacting. And of course, revenue share, it's high revenue, and it supports other criminal activity. I think that's been well proven over the years. And we, from a Vodafone point of view, are keen to try and, disrupt, if you like, that financial food chain, trying to prevent the monies going down the chain to these fraudsters by using various techniques that we have and that we deploy on our fraud system.
Okay, thank you. Anurag, and being a specialist on A2P messaging and with Tata, which fraud scenarios are becoming popular, let's say, in your part of the spectrum?
Of course, firstly, you have your grey routes, which continue to exist and are a major source of revenue leakage, and they also cause fraud because they at times go undetected within the operator's fraud management systems at times. Which is why the need for a very strong firewalling and an FMS. Within this, you've got your GT lease routes, you have your SIM farms, you have your local domestic routes. There's a whole bunch of different routes which lead to fraud and loss of revenue. In fact, just to give some statistics, from this alone, there is an approximate $8 to $9 billion of annual loss to mobile operators just on account of grey routes which are currently existing in the system. And in the recent COVID times, with a spurt in a lot more messaging traffic, these numbers are seen to be growing. So while the overall business is growing, the pie of fraud is also growing. Other than that, I think another major area which is becoming more and more popular is smishing, which is SMS phishing, wherein we see a number of cases of fraudulent links being sent, which are leading to new sorts of information gathering, which fraudsters are able to take. Just yesterday, I was on a call organized by the GSMA, which spoke about a new type of a fraud coming in called like the flu bot virus or something like that, which actually focuses on allowing these encouraging users to download some apps or click on some links, and are then able to extract a lot of information and a lot of contact details and further send out messages to the user's contact directory. So these are some of the cases which are becoming very popular. I guess Wangiri also, I think it's starting to catch some traction in the messaging space. I know it's very, very prevalent in the voice side, but I believe I've heard of some cases in the messaging ones also. But outside of that, yeah, I mean, your entire gray route traffic which keeps coming in, and smishing and artificial inflation of traffic. These are a couple of different SMS streams which are fraudulent in nature.
Okay, thank you. You mentioned at the beginning, you mentioned in GTs and the leasing of it. GT is a global title. Can you, for not everybody who is, let's say, really familiar with the GT, can you quickly explain what is a GT?
Sure. I'll explain it in very simple terms. So global titles are the identifier of any mobile operator. And typically operators work on a business relationship with other operators, wherein when P2P SMS, international P2P SMS is going between two operators, then of course the operators are already charging their end users for that traffic. So they're already monetizing that traffic. In order to avoid any further transactions between the operators, which would anyways be net off. Suppose if I say, "Hi Eric, how are you?" and you reply, "Anurag, hi, I'm fine, thank you." So we both have exchanged a message. So rather than asking both our operators to charge each other, a lot of operators decided to make this mutual forgiveness and not charge each other, with the expectations that there'll be balanced flow of traffic, P2P traffic between both the operators. However, what a couple of operators started realizing that they can make a quick buck on the side, because these GTs are open and are not being, and the end operator is not charging for them. And hence they started leasing out these global titles to enterprises and a lot of SMS originators who would otherwise have to pay a lot more if they have to directly send a message to the destination network. Instead, they would go via this global title. They would masquerade basically as if they are the operator on the other end, but they would actually be the enterprise. And suppose if it's in India versus suppose if I'm sending to somebody in UK, it could be an Indian operator wherein the Indian enterprise is using an Indian GT and it appears to be an Indian operator, but actually it's the enterprise. And at the other end, suppose if it's Vodafone UK, they would presume that it's an Indian operator's P2P traffic, and hence this has to not be charged. So that's something which has been very heavily misused and abused in the last 10 years, I'd say. Now operators have got a lot of whiff of it, and they've stopped a lot of these SS7 interconnects, which were free of charge, and the firewalls are becoming more progressive in blocking such cases. So that's what's been happening on GT leasing.
Okay, thank you very much for this quick sidestep, especially on the messaging side. But I think it was important for the people and the audience to understand what we're talking about, what we're facing, and even how it was, let's say, with the global titles in the past and how it's going now. Igor, do you have, let's say, some other let's say fraud scenarios which are really becoming popular? You mentioned them already, but do you have anything to add on this question from your fellow panelists?
Sure. I mean, just as much as my fellow panelists, I can talk for hours as to what we encounter and how do we fight it. I mean, we can talk all day. Regarding the things that I would like to underline is probably the most looked at by government regulations and rule makers would be robocalls. This is something that is running rampant, especially in the developed markets like USA and Western Europe. There are billions of those robocalls being generated, and there's a special attention to make sure it goes away by the regulators. There are huge efforts and to make it into reality, and we welcome them. This is something that should that should make life of enterprises and average user a lot easier. We're welcoming our AB handshake efforts, and obviously we're welcoming stir shaking efforts as another decision that is countering that. Another scenario that I would like to kind of put attention onto is interconnect bypass. The analog of SIM boxes that Anurag just mentioned. This is a major problem with voice, especially in the developing countries. We see a lot of those things and a lot of inquiries encountering that, and we hope we will kind of defeat that soon. So these are the two things that I kind of wanted to add.
Okay, thank you. So Mike, what from your point of view do you think that how big is it? I mean, how is the entire ecosystem affected? What can you share with us? What do you see?
Well, I think you know, I mean, there are plenty of figures out there, whether they're from the GSMA, CFA, as to what the cost of fraud, telecom fraud, is to the industry. And whilst I think we all have our own ways of tackling it with our FMSs, and actually across the carrier environment, you'll find that there's very little difference in them. You know, but you know, despite that, I think, you know, there is still money to be made by fraudsters, and that has to be the key focus here. And you know, we need to ensure, one of our strengths as an industry will be to share and collaborate, which is a bit of a strange thing when you know, we're often competitors when we're trying to win business. But I think certainly in the fraud environment, it is key that we share our knowledge and our experience. You know, none of us want this bad traffic on the network. It's not good for business. It's costly to manage and administer. You know, it is good if we can work, you know, more closely together, share best practice, share, you know, intelligence. I think that's key here. That's one of the key things that certainly Vodafone, you know, through the GSMA, through the i3 forum and many others, you know, we are keen to, you know, share what we are seeing, because, you know, we are a global operator. We see the fraud from all directions. And I think it's, you know, it's incumbent on us because, as Igor's just mentioned, you know, the regulator in whichever country, the UK particularly, you know, is taking an increasing look at how fraud is managed, how fraud is protected for their customers, for their consumers. So, you know, we need to ensure that, you know, we act responsibly and try and police it in the best way we can ourselves, but at the same time run a business. I think that's one of the key challenges for us. It's that balance of risk and reward.
Mm-hmm. Igor?
I totally agree with Mike. I mean, it's been said perfectly the way he puts that. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. Anurag, you want to put anything, let's say a little bit of cream on the pie that we have to work together and
I think Mike mentioned a very valid point, and I think a lot out here has to do with collaboration, because this is a threat to the industry. It's not a threat to Lang or Vodafone or to Tata or to anyone alone. It's a threat to the industry, and what attacks operator A today can easily attack operator B tomorrow. For that reason, we see a lot of good platforms for collaboration. And Mike and I, in fact, and so is Lank. In fact, Lank is also represented. All three of us are members of what is called the i3 forum, where we have some of the largest carriers actually joining in and providing their inputs on what they see on the messaging fraud. So we have the messaging fraud work group. I chair that work group, and I work very closely with all our participants to find different ways of fraud which is up and coming. And we actually get some of our partners and our members to share what's the latest. That's helping. We also have the Mobile Ecosystem Forum, the MEF. That's another very powerful forum where we have a number of members, especially I think many who are out here are also members. I know Lank is, for example. And here also we see that there is a lot of activity going on. There are proper codes of conduct created with the intent of, because a lot out here is to do with self-regulation, right? There is no clear regulation on international business. And hence there is a whole code of conduct focusing on self-regulation, which is expected to be followed by all members of the value stream, whether it's the originators, that is your enterprises, it's your intermediaries, such as aggregators and service providers, or the end operator, or even the user, in terms of providing proper consent and giving the right details when they are actually filling in databases, and they need to be sure that where implicitly their consent is actually going through. So there is actually a whole code of conduct around it. And it's important that collaboration continues between all operators and all members of the value stream, so that we can never win it. I once said in a forum that I think the winner will always be the fraudster, because he's always going to be one step ahead, and that's never going to change. But what's important is to narrow the gap as much as possible, so that there is very little time, a very small window provided to a fraudster to actually create significant impact. So that's what's most important, and hence it's important for the industry to unite and work together in this direction.
Okay, all clear. So I see that you all three share the same vision and have actually the same the same mission. So so Igor, how are operators protecting themselves actually nowadays, if it's with or maybe even without the FMS?
Sure. Well, obviously, the lesser the enemy knows about your defenses, the better. So there wouldn't be any operator that would just disclose everything that is out there in terms of protect themselves from fraud. But we see that a lot of operators, they employ several defense system. They could be analytical, they could be something else. Firewalls are out there. Obviously, some operators are already gearing up with stir shaking or AB handshake, and everyone is kind of doing their own thing. So they make sure that nothing that could potentially damage their defenses is leaked out. But on the contrary, of course, just like Anurag underlined, is that sharing information and sharing as much as you can without damaging yourself and damaging industry is very important. So this was one of the principles that were put in fraud management system. We think that by sharing our platform with partners, we make the whole market safer. And that makes our business easier, that makes our losses smaller, but also it actually makes the losses of our partners lesser as well. It's our way to reach out not only with knowledge, not only with just some data about the cases or fraud scenarios verbatim. We could also be sharing technology, and I think that this is one of the trends that would be out there, and this is something that more and more operators we expect to do in coming years. And obviously, AB Handshake, the validation tools that are in their baby stages, there are only very few operators out there in terms of the whole industry just employing validation tools to the full extent, but the number is growing. And we expect with the validation tool to decrease the window that Anurag just mentioned, to make sure that there's a lot less opportunity for fraudsters to prey on. And we just make sure that their life is more and more difficult. This is what we would like to do.
Okay, cool, thanks. Mike, and then not only how are the operators protecting themselves or not enough, but also how are the market players collaborating to tackle the challenge? Maybe next to trying to partner up and to share information, but what also could be, let's say, another, let's say, good point to tackle the challenge.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's been said by all of us, it's a fast-moving environment, and we want to make sure our FMS is the core of what we do, and we need to make sure it's as dynamic as it possibly can be. We use a lot of AI type technology now, as I'm sure many other people do. We use third-party database, proprietary databases to identify those key fraud numbers, those international revenue share numbers, for example, that are used. But it's also about actually how do we route the traffic. And I think Anurag mentioned, sort of the code of conduct. Sadly, there are operators out there that really don't put the customer high on their agenda. It is the fast buck, I think was the comment made. So we do need to ensure that we police it ourselves. It's what our customers would expect us to do. There's a number of operators out there. There's a wide choice for customers to go to. And as I said at the outset, fraud and a focus on fraud is one of the key things I get asked about, is when we receive traffic or not. But it's about how you route it. We specifically will use trusted partners. We try to route the traffic as direct as we can, rather than having too many intermediaries in the road, because the more that you introduce into the traffic flow, the increase in likelihood of fraud that you're going to see. And as I've already said, I think the regulators are looking more closely at us and how we operate and how we perform. And if they feel that the problems, the robocalls, the nuisance calls, Wangiri calls, if they're not being properly tackled and properly policed, then they may want to introduce things that will actually, perhaps be unhealthy for us, because they may not be, we might not be able to do it, or it would severely impact our ability to operate. So it's in all our interest to make sure that we use the best technology that we have. We share best practice, I've said, in intelligence and what have you. But also trying to put as much control back to the customer as well, give them a greater say, if you like, in what traffic they want to be protected, and set the levels of protection and what have you. So as I say, we need to make sure the FMSs are as dynamic as they truly can be.
So would you say then, and thank you, Mike, would you say, going back on the routing, and I know it's a bit offside, but I would like to do so. On the routing, by the end of the day, the guys who are out there, the operators who are out there, who do not, let's say, underline, underpin, keeping them to themselves to the code of conduct, they wipe them out themselves by the end of the day, because as you mentioned, you're trying to route as direct as you can, right? But is it as well then becoming a policy within, let's say, big operators? Well, and my question is, well, what do you see? That they deny, let's say, the smaller operators or the smaller telcos out there, or middlemen, and using more and more, is it a trend more and more, let's say, the direct big guys, the tier ones, tier twos who are out there, because you have this trust in each other? Is that a trend?
I don't think it's not restricted to the big players. I think it's, our customers, they want quality, and they want traffic, or they want the business at a good price. That's the business drivers. But but by working with the trusted partners, whoever they are, those that have perhaps meets those code of conduct, so that they've almost been, how can I put it? It's almost like a trust pilot, isn't it, or a kite mark, if you like, that they operate to a standard. And I think we would all be encouraged to work with partners who want to meet and aspire to meet those same standards, whoever they may be.
Okay, clear. Anurag, on within the messaging, of course, I mean, voice. There's a lot from voice in messaging in voice, but it's still a different ball game. So, how do you see in the messaging market how the market players collaborating to tackle, let's say, the challenge of fraud?
You're asking how is messaging market tackling fraud, or how it's getting towards it? Yeah. All right. I guess if I go to one of the industry research reports, Mobile Squared, for example, they run a survey on the impact of fraud for mobile operators on the A2P business. And as I mentioned, the impact is close to $8 to $10 billion a year. What's very important is that operators are now starting to get into a firewalling frame of mind, which was not there earlier. Initially, it was something like that. What we can't see is not a problem. But I think now they realize it, that what they're not seeing is actually unmonetized traffic. And this is a steady stream of assured revenue, which they can monetize if they have the right tools in place. So that's the first step which operators are starting to do. Another step is what I call managed services. Now, let's take, for example, what Igor presented today, a fantastic FMS, right? I'd call it like equivalent to a Ferrari. So, so Lank has made a Ferrari and they're offering it to operators.
Now watch it. Now watch it. There are people who like Lamborghini more. So not me, but watch it.
Yeah, but I like the Ferrari more, so I'll still stick to that. So what I'm trying to get at is, Eric, that there's a fantastic tool which Igor has, and they're offering it to their customers, and especially mobile operators. Now imagine if an operator has a Ferrari in their garage, or a Lamborghini in their garage, but they don't know how to drive it. Okay. Now imagine you have a fantastic piece of machinery within your infrastructure, but you're not really knowing how to use it, and hence you're not being able to extract the benefit out of it. Or maybe, for example, they don't know the sports mode and they just work on a very simple basic functionality. So that's the second stage, wherein first is about awareness of deploying fraud management systems or a firewall. Second is actually having the right expertise to run these machineries once they're deployed, and making sure that they are constantly abreast of the latest challenges, the latest hacks, the latest fraudulent activities taking place. Because as I said, the fraudster will always be one step ahead. So it's very important for these firewalls and FMS systems to actually have the likes of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and make sure that they are up to date in terms of the types of hacks which are happening, and make sure timely precautionary steps are taken to reduce these hacks and to totally eliminate them in the days to come until new ones come. So I feel this is one of the biggest steps which the industry is taking. Even the intermediary players such as a Lang, Vodafone. Vodafone is still an operator, of course, but I'm saying if you take the likes of Lang Telecom or Tata Communications, or even Vodafone as a carrier, if we are considering them from that angle, all of us are investing a lot into fraud management systems because they dent our revenue streams and our image in the market as well, our reliability of service. So we are taking some of these actions, and more importantly, the last point, the last mile, which is the operator, they are key to ensuring that their subscriber base is not subject to frauds as far as possible. And hence, these firewalls and fraud management systems are the biggest tools, and managing them well. That's most important. That deploy them and manage them well. That's what the operators have started realizing the importance of, and they're doing that very diligently. So that's what's happening on the messaging front.
So managed services is becoming really the key. So how do I drive the car, right? And how do I drive it well and go through the Stelvio pass?
Absolutely.
Right? Okay, gentlemen. Some famous last words from your side, Mike, because we're coming to the end of this very interesting session from Lang Telecom. So, any message you have to the market? Any last nice words?
Sorry, I was on mute there. I think certainly over the last hour, we've heard some very good insights, and I think, as Anurag said, quite often we are one step behind the fraudsters, and whilst that's it's a challenging place to be, I think it's a key focus, I think, for any a reputable carrier or operator. Fraud should be at the top of their agenda. We need to make sure that we do collaborate and that we do share best practice, and that we use the best possible tools that we can to eradicate or try and reduce dramatically the instance of fraud. None of us want this in the marketplace. It's not a healthy place to be. It costs money to run the network. It does impact our customers when it comes to quality and everything else. And it's in all our interests, I think, as any operator, to run our network as effectively as we possibly can, and to police it ourselves, and rather than be policed.
Rather than wait, if you don't solve it yourself within your industry, then we are here to solve it for you. That's actually what you're saying. So we need to watch it and.
Yes, more or less. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Anurag, any things on future, or what will come and what will happen, or some nice last words from your side?
I'll just say this. I now prepared my speech, so I'll stick to that. I think finally, guys, I'll say it's important to collaborate and cooperate. That's most important when we are talking about fight against fraud. Today we talk about, for example, fight against COVID. Why do we call it like that? Because we are all in this together. We are all in the same boat in some shape or form, and we are all finding ways in which we can help each other to come out of this entire menagerie once and for all. So likewise, as I said, sadly, especially in the case of fraud, that's a never-ending battle. That's a never-ending fight. But when we're talking fight against fraud, it's very important for all of us players to collaborate, cooperate, and make sure that we share our knowledge amongst each other in as cohesive a manner as possible, so that everybody can make use of that knowledge, and in their respective Ferraris in their garage, they're able to deploy the right rules, the right checks and balances, and make sure that their systems are uh, uh, reducing these fraudulent attacks as far as possible until new ones come. So work together.
Thank you very much. So Igor, coming to you last but not least, of course, and do you still have, let's say, a message for the end of this this interesting panel session? Maybe some takeaway for the audience out there. Is Igor still with us? Hello.
I think Igor has gone into the classroom mode wherein he's there, but he's not there.
Yeah, well, it could. Well, Igor is back, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No worries, because it happens, and we're all virtual. So this is what it is. And then because Anurag was talking about Ferraris, you know, and some people like the Lamborghinis or even just a simple, you know, whatever it is. So anyway, some famous last words and some takeaway and message for the audience, please. Igor.
Sure. First of all, thank you very much for having me and this wonderful panel with esteemed professionals like you. I'm really glad to share my knowledge and share our perspective to all the panelists and participants, especially. It's the first time our system was compared to Ferrari, and we're very glad. And we're trying to make sure that every operator out there can put the Ferrari of fraud management into their garage. I mean, the technology is becoming more and more available in terms of price, in terms of just ways of integration, in terms of ease of use, and to have the interface being user-friendly. So we're just, we would be doing our best to make sure that everyone's driving a Ferrari someday, at least in that way.
And enjoy it. And enjoy it. So thank you very much, gentlemen, and ladies and gentlemen out there. It seems that we're heading towards the end of the session, and actually it is almost, after Laura spoke, the end of the session. So thank you, keynote speaker Igor Skuvchenia from Lanka, from Appiahamshake. So for your participation and giving an interesting presentation to us and sharing let's say the knowledge you have with us. And of course, also to the panelists, Mike from Vodafone and Anurag from Tata. So guys, that was all for today. Hope to see you very much soon. And audience, thank you very much for your valuable questions, and stay tuned. There's more to come from Carry Community. So Laura, over to you. Back to my colleagues in the studio. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric. Dear all, we are at the end of this webinar session, and I would like to thank Igor for his interesting presentation, our panelists for sharing their knowledge. Also, I would like to thank our audience for joining and listening. This panel will be soon available on CC Media portal for you to watch. We are looking forward to welcoming you in our future branded webinars. For more information, contact CC team. If you're interested in supporting and sponsoring one of our future branded webinars, please also contact us. For all updates and fresh content, follow us on our 4 social media channels. Also, subscribe to our Telegram news channel to receive exclusive invitations to our upcoming CC-Webinar.Live sessions. Stay safe and healthy. Goodbye for now.